Guys, Joe McDonough back here, mymmanews.com, joined by Juicy J himself, Mr. Julian Erosa. Julian, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man, and I appreciate the time. I mean, talk to me. It must feel good. June 19th, fight night set, and now it's just camp, weight cut, and then it's fight night.
Yeah, the first fight I had back with UFC with Sean Woodson was 3 days notice. The one with Nate Landwehr after that was 5 weeks, and for this fight, I'll have known for 3.5 months. So it's quite the lengthy camp, but it's nice to have a little bit of time to really kind of settle in and get things dialed in. And one thing I'm going to enjoy about being a fight night is that I get to fight here in Vegas again. It's the same kind of routine that I've been through with the Sean and the Nate fight. The Apex, they do it really well. They get you in, get you out. I usually make it home to my apartment before the card's done anyway. So it's nice to kind of get in there and get out and within a few hours and be done and just kind of be able to enjoy the night with my family. And I remember back when we had to travel places, it was like we'd go fight and then you would kind of be hanging around the green room until the show was over, and then it might be an 8, 9, 10 hour ordeal, and if you have to go to the hospital, then it's even longer. So it's nice to get in and out.
And I know had mentioned it's nice to get in there, fight, get home, be home, and maybe even watch the main event on your own TV with the family and everything.
Yeah.
It was a part of you hoping for a fight night or a pay-per-view with fans now that fans are getting back in the building.
The fans is for me, the whole Apex thing has been nice because I've been used to fighting in kind of that arena. Being on the Ultimate Fighter, the Contender Series, it's all pretty similar to that. You're fighting in front of a handful of important people, and that's about it. Everybody else is watching on TV at home, and so for me, going in there in the Apex is nice because it's almost like I'm sparring. It kind of brings down the kind of that pressure level of performing in front of a bunch of people. It feels like we're at the gym. I got my coaches, he's got his coaches, and we're going to kind of do a little bit more aggressive sparring than normal. But I've been used to that. I had 4 fights on the Ultimate Fighter, I had a Contender Series fight, and my last 2 fights with the UFC have been at the Apex. So that's 7 fights I've had in that kind of scenario. And so I feel like just having that is kind of an edge for myself. And not only that, being here in Vegas, I'm used to the conditions, the air. It's a dry desert heat out here, and a lot of people that come here and train for the first couple of times are always telling me that it's kind of hard on their lungs. It's such a dry heat that it takes some getting used to. So I feel like all those things adding up is a little bit of an advantage for me.
Mm-hmm. And talking about Seung Woo Choi, I mean, what are your expectations for him in this fight?
I expect Seung Woo Choi to pressure me from the bell. He's always been. It seems like he's one of those guys who likes to pressure. He's got good striking, good kind of like a kickboxing striking, and so I'm gonna have to keep a good defense. But I like to pressure people too, so we'll see who kind of is able to control the cage early on, and who starts to kind of fade. I've always been one of those guys that doesn't really fade. The Sean Woodson fight is a good example of that. Sean, pressured me pretty good in the beginning of that fight with his striking, and I was able to kind of absorb a lot of his damage and use my defense to, just the last, and then once I was able to find my footing in that fight to start pressuring back and start breaking him. And so, I didn't get that finish until in the 3rd round late in that fight, but it was all the work leading up, from the bell, being able to to absorb his damage and be able to start finding my pressure as well. And I feel like I'm going to do pretty similar with Seung Woo Choi. I'm going to let him feel as if he's, kind of controlling things, but, it's just a matter of time before he starts to break.
And is it ever a nervous thing in the sense of, and maybe not in the fight, but, in a way, giving up a round almost? And I know you're not giving up a round, but kind of letting him pressure and waiting for him to fade. So, like happened in Sean Woodson fight. What happens if they don't fade?
Yeah, it's always difficult to really anticipate certain things. There's a lot of times people are like, are you going to get ready for this guy? He's a wrestler. He's going to do this, this, and this. But you never know. You really never know.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's working on. In the Gavin Tucker fight, he got taken down a handful of times on the outside single that Gavin Tucker kept doing. So I could be training the outside single a million times, but who knows? Maybe maybe he sees that as a hole in his game, and maybe he was working on outside single defense. He wasn't even trying to grab a neck when Gavin was going for that outside single, and so it just really didn't seem like he knew what he was doing in that specific situation. And so I could go in that fight assuming that's what's going to happen, and it could be the actual opposite. So I never really try to assume anything that he's going to do. Obviously, we have a little bit of a game plan about how he might, work and what he's going to do. But for me, I can only focus on what I'm doing. And I tell you one thing, man, I'm one of those guys that just kills himself with cardio the entire camp. So like, there's one thing that I will not do, and that's fade. And if he doesn't fade, then he's putting in a lot of work too. And if he doesn't fade and I don't fade, it's going to be a fight of the night. But for me, I'm not looking on winning rounds. I'm looking on winning fights, And so, and that was the whole Sean Woodson fight. There's a lot of people who think I might have lost those first 2 rounds, and if Sean would have survived that 3rd round, he would have won that fight. And it could have been like that, but I was pressuring, looking for a finish in that 3rd round. Even in the 2nd round, I was trying to pressure and eventually get a finish. And so that's kind of what happened, and it worked out good for me.
And let's hope that Dana White keeps those bonuses at $75,000 instead of $50K, because it does have fight of the night written all over it. So that'd be pretty nice, adding the win and $75,000 to the paycheck. Talk to me about Julian Erosa 2019 versus Julian Erosa 2021.
Oh man, it can be discouraging to lose fights, especially multiple fights in a row. Before that skid in the UFC, I had never lost more than 1 fight in a row. I'd lose if I ever lost a fight, I'd always come back and win my next fight, or multiple fights after that. And so for me, losing 1 fight, 2 fights, 3 fights, it can be really discouraging, especially when you get back into the UFC, where you feel like you belong. And it was my second turn in the UFC, and so I was super disappointed with that. And it was kind of one of those things that made me become kind of a desperate man, in the sense of being a fighter. And I feel like when people get comfortable, they can be too lackadaisical in the fight and start losing fights because of that. And for me, I needed to kind of get back to that do or die. And when I got that Sean Woodson fight on 3 days' notice, I mean, I was willing to die in there, and it was kind of a mindset switch. I know he knows, all the skills, all the ABC skills, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. But for me, it was just a little bit of a mindset switch, and I was just willing to want to get it more than he did. And I think same with Nate Landwehr. And obviously the Nate Landwehr fight was a quick fight, but I guarantee you if that fight would have gone any further, the same thing would have happened. I'm just hungrier than I've ever been, and I almost like drive myself insane, trying just to overwork myself because I'm just so hungry and so wanting to be prepared for each fight, because these opportunities don't come. And for me, I've been lucky. I've had multiple opportunities. A lot of guys have a hard time getting the UFC period, let alone getting 1, 2, or 3 shots. And so for me, I take it very serious. And, I think with that second stint in the UFC where I went 0-3, I might have got a little too relaxed in thinking that I could just go in there and do my thing. Everything will turn out all right. You gotta, if you're not willing to die in there and the guy across from you is, right out the gate, you can get starched quick. Devontae Smith, I was kind of just hanging out. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go out there and fight and do my thing, see how things unfold. And it was over before it started. And so, I won't be making those kind of mistakes anymore. From the beginning bell all the way to the end of the bell, I'm willing to sacrifice everything to win that fight. So that's the one thing that you'll see. Anytime I'm in that cage now, it's not only will I be prepared 100%, from the conditioning and for 15 minutes hard, but you're gonna have to turn me off to beat me. And I'm not much of a, obviously people can beat you by decision and stuff, but I've never, most of my fights are by finish, and I don't really have a lot of decisions either way. And so, you got to turn me off. Otherwise, I'm going to be in the fight for the whole 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And a hungry Julian Erosa is a dangerous one. And we'll see that, come June 19th. So you've had, like you said, you've had plenty of chances and you've made the most of all of them. You are one of the few fighters that's been in the Tough House, the Ultimate Fighter, and also done Contender Series. I guess in the sense of, I feel like, Tough's coming back this summer. Contender Series also is. And I feel like Contender Series gets all the love, even though I love Tough. For you, what was the more rewarding situation, I guess, for your career?
I think the Contender Series was probably the most rewarding, just because even though I didn't get signed that night, I was still able to showcase what I was about. And I fought, Jamal Emmers, who's in the UFC right now, and at the time I think he was like 13-3 or something like that, and he was, up and coming prospect, and they were really building him up. I was almost a 3-1 underdog the night of the fight, and so which was weird to me because at the time I had. And even now, I have like a 90% finish rate or something, 85%, 90% finish rate. His is like 40, 45 or something. And I had just so much more experience, and been in the Ultimate Fighter House, been in the UFC, and it was just so weird to me that he was given. And this was before the big skid that I had, so like I had never really shown people that I was, a weak fighter by any means, and so that was just one of the biggest ones for me, just because I was in the UFC, was on the Ultimate Fighter, and then had been cut, and then just been grinding. I'd been doing the whole regional circuit thing, living at my mom's house, really just trying to make the dream come true, because, even at the highest level on the regional circuits, you're making nothing really. I mean, all your expenses, you're basically in the red when you go and fight that night. So, you might make 3 or 4 grand, but you probably spent 6, 7, 8 grand on the fight camp. And so, for me, being able to go in there and in front of Dana White and the matchmakers and stuff, and be able to knock out Jamal Emmers, it was very satisfying. And I knew eventually that would get me in the UFC, even though I didn't get signed that night. And so that was one of those things that I'd just been for years after being cut from the UFC, just hoping for just one more stepping stone to get back in the UFC, and that was it. And that's what I was able to do that night. So that was probably the most rewarding out of the 2 TV shows.
And it was a special night. Last thing for me here, prediction for June 19th for Fight Night.
Oh, I think for me and Seung Woo Choi, I think it's going to be kind of a stand-up battle at first for sure. But I think if we get to the ground at all, which I'm anticipating a little bit of a ground fighting as well, he's going to get choked out, and usually by a Darce. My Darce choke is pretty unstoppable, as in the Sean Woodson fight, was able to Darce choke him, and everybody in the gym knows my Darce is pretty unbeatable. So if I can get my hands wrapped around his neck in a Darce choke, it's going to be over. But if not, if we're on the feet, you're just going to see 15 minutes of pressure for both of us, and let's let the better man win that night.
Awesome, Julian. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it, and I look forward to watching on Fight Night.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good one.